back and weld it. That looks pretty straight and even. Now I'm going to weld it. I can either hold it this way and weld it, or I can lay it this way and weld it. It's just a little bit easier to get into the angle when it's facing up like that. Again, I'm making sure my tip is clean because after a couple welds, can you guys see that it has built up a little bit of slag around it? It's not terrible yet, so I'm going to do probably one more weld, and then I would want to clean that out because if it gets too close, you're either going to weld to the side or it's restricting the gas too much. Kind of take note of how long it takes me to make a 3-inch weld. That's the speed you want to be going. If I doubled the speed, the weld would look very different and it wouldn't be a very good weld. Maybe I'll do a fast weld on one of those plates just to see what it looks like. So again, the smaller pieces of metal heat up really fast, so I don't want to grab it with my gloves. There's my T-weld in the corner. Now, I'm actually looking at it thinking I could have done a little bit better because it dug in a little bit on the top and bottom around the middle area where you can see the dark shadow. You're not trying to do that. That's called undercut. That's where I pretty much went a little too slow on that, so it melted more than it put down. So, like I said, I would do the other side also. But let's do a fast weld on the plate and see what it does. Okay, I'm going to try and go about twice as fast as I should, and we'll see what that looks like. Yeah, it's not that bad. Can you tell which one I just went fast on? First two, third one without the gas, and then the really fast one. It didn't weld. All it did was lay little puddles on the metal. And if I went really, really slow, it would still be a problem. It would really just build up a bunch of weld. So let's try that. I don't like doing that. That's kind of messy. Also, you see what built up on the welder? So I definitely need to clean that off. Let's try not to drop this on the laptop. See the really big weld right there? See how high it's sticking up? See how wide it is? It's not terrible. If it was a really thick piece of metal, like ½ inch thick, that would be an okay weld because you're trying to get really good penetration and weld depth. But for a thinner piece of metal like this, it was overkill, and it probably almost melted through the backside. Okay, so we have the T-weld, the lap weld, the last one is the butt weld. Usually we start with the butt weld because it's a little bit easier to do. Let's do that now. And what do we do first? tack weld them together. Now, there's a little bit more wire sticking out than I want, so I'm going to clip that off, and I'm also going to clean the tip off while taking it off the welder. See how much buildup is in there? These pliers have ridges on the outside. They're made to stick in and twist. You might not get all of it off, but you get most of it off. It'll keep it clean enough to work. Is that better? Okay, so I'm going to tack weld these together now. Try really hard not to weld stuff to the plate on the table. Two tack welds, just big enough to hold them together. Okay, should I do something else wrong? I'm going to turn the voltage down. It's at voltage 3 right now. I'm going to turn it to a voltage 1 and see what that does. Not working very good. The wire speed is coming out way faster than it can melt, so it's just building up wire. Actually, you want to see that? Does that look like a good weld? Nasty. I hate that. I'm going to pretend I didn't do that. Okay, now I'm going to turn it up. Instead of 1, it was at 3. 3 is the proper setting. I'm going to go to 5, and we'll see what that does. So it's not a nasty weld, it's a really wide weld, really flat, and it almost went through the metal. So as it's not a terrible way to do it, it does have its applications to turn the voltage way up because it gets a really deep weld. It's still not a very good characteristic for this thickness and for what we're trying to do. So I'm going to do the other side on voltage 3 correctly and see if I can get a nice weld on it. Now that it has a bump underneath it, I have to deal with that. My tip is still clean, wire sticking out the correct amount. There's a decent butt weld. Good height, good width, consistent width all the way down. And if I cleaned it off, if I hold it right, you can see it. But you can kind of see, you ever hear the term stacking dimes? It's because you see a lot of half moon shapes. It's kind of what you're going for. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but while I'm welding, I'm basically doing tiny circles. About the size of a pencil. Pretend you're trying to put the welding wire around a pencil. That's how big they are, and they overlap each other. So tiny little circles, that's how I get the width that I want, that's how I get the slowness that I want, and I've just done it enough that I know the decent speed to go. So I've got a butt weld, a lap weld, and a T-weld. Now what you're going to do with those after you get those done, if your first butt weld looks terrible, do it again. You're gonna show me every weld you do. If I don't like it, you're gonna do it over again. There's no judgment. Everyone starts at a terrible place. Where you're gonna be in a crash course. You're trying to figure this out in a week. It's not a lot of time. So I might have you do something over 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Doesn't matter. Go do it again. Go do it again. You only get good at welding with practice and doing it multiple times. So after you've done your butt weld as many times as it takes to get a good one, I'm gonna pretend that's a good one. You do your lap weld as many times as it takes to get a good one. I'll pretend that's a good one. Then you do your T-weld. So you've got your 3 joints and you got your weld plate that you started with. Both sides done. So what you're gonna do with those now is you're gonna weld your T-weld, lap weld, and butt weld to the plate, and that's how you turn them in. You turn them in as a chunk. I'll show you that. So we'll pretend I did all my nice welds on this guy. So I like to put a T-weld on the end. And this actually can count as your butt weld. If you just do the lap weld and T-weld, make those good, you could use your butt weld project as welding those to the plate. Can you guys see that? Yeah, okay. My T-weld is up against my plate, and I'm just gonna tack weld it on. And I missed. Welded it to the table. Now my T-weld is part of my plate. Now I'll put the lap weld on. So I have my T-weld, my lap weld. Now I've had kids do both and I will accept both. I can go back and basically weld the seam between the plate and the lap weld. That would be my butt weld project. And I can weld the seam between the T-weld and the plate, and that would be my butt weld project also. Or you can weld the butt weld project on. I don't really care. I just want to see the projects. Let's weld my butt weld on. Okay. This is my finished project for week 1. Well, actually this is week 2 because this is the thicker metal. This is 3/16. So this is 1 week's project if it was all finished up correctly. I would do the 1/8 metal, exact same thing. The same plate, the same pieces, changing the settings on the welder so you know what you're doing. This is what you turn in at the end of the week. Any questions? Let's see what we got. Okay, that's a little better. Okay, do we have any questions?
Wait, do you know when we go back to school?
That isn't a welding question, thank you. I'm recording right now. I'm trying to do a video for our postings. Anything else? You all got it perfectly. Took good notes, right? Okay, good. Okay, make sure you got your notes all finished up. Turn them in. You're done for the day.